Hey everyone, this is Ben with RegisteredNurseRN.com, and in this video I'm going to give you some simple strategies that you can use to improve your time management skills. And a lot of students struggle with finding enough time to complete all their assignments and study and so forth. So I'm going to give you some simple tips that you can use to get more work done in a shorter period of time. Okay, number one, you've got to cut out the unnecessary distractions. What am I talking about? I'm talking about texting, Facebook, Snapchat. Now, if you're on our YouTube channel, that's okay. But everything else, it has to go. I'm just joking. But everything else has to go because see what happens is you'll get a text message or something like that and you'll think, oh, okay, I'll respond to this. It'll just take a minute. But what really happens is that minute turns into 20 minutes or 30 minutes. And then you find yourself becoming preoccupied with that instead of focusing on your studies and getting work done. So what you need to do is set a designated time throughout the day, and let's say you're going to do it from 8 o'clock to 8:30. You're going to catch up on all your texts, all your Facebooking, and all that stuff at one time. And then the rest of the time, you'll turn those phones and everything off and spend time studying. So number one, you have to cut out the distractions. Number two, make a list of all the activities that you like to do in a given day or on an average day. For example, do you exercise? Do you maybe have to work at a part-time job? What is your class schedule like? Are there any hobbies you like to do? You know, spending time with loved ones, etc. Then what you need to do is you need to look and say, what can I consolidate? What can I do within this time frame where I can both get studying done and get something else done simultaneously? For example, let's say you want to exercise. Well, while you're riding an exercise bike, and I have an exercise bike, and my wife and I use that, and you can just ride an exercise bike and you can practice some of your flashcards or read some notes or something like that. That way you're not having to sacrifice one or the other, you're getting both done, but you're doing it in a more efficient manner. Also, another huge tip, and a lot of people have learned this and take advantage of this, is you can either get a digital recorder or use a smartphone that has a recording function on it or an MP3 player with a record. And then you can record yourself. Let's say you're taking pharmacology, you're struggling memorizing all the drug names and what each drug does and so forth. You can sit and record yourself saying some of those drug names and all that, and then you can repeat that on the recorder or play the recorder while you're in the shower, while you're driving to and from work or to and from nursing school. You can play it and put headphones in while you're walking around on campus, and that is going to just cut down and all this free time you have just doing small things throughout the day. You're actually going to get in some valuable study time. Another thing is you really need to use a planner to help you stay organized. And I had a whole video on how to stay organized in nursing school, which is giving you tips on using a folder, using a planner, organizing your schedule and things like that. But using a planner or a calendar system may take some time and work up front, but what it's going to do is going to save you a lot more time in the long run. So I would highly recommend that. Okay, another tip. It's really important that you practice for NCLEX because once you graduate nursing school, you've got to sit for the NCLEX exam before you can become licensed, right? And my wife has often given the tip that you need to study regularly throughout each semester some of those study questions, buy the study guide, practice the study questions. But how are you going to study NCLEX when you also have to study for nursing school? Well, the answer is that you use the sections in NCLEX that correspond with the current classes you're taking. So for example, let's say you're taking maternity nursing and you've got to study for that class. Well, you can also practice some NCLEX questions by focusing on the maternity section. And that's going to help you kill two birds with one stone because you're familiarizing yourself with the NCLEX and you're also learning information that you're going to be able to apply in that same course. Another tip is that you may have children or a spouse or a boyfriend, girlfriend, or other family members or friends, and you want to spend time with them. Well, how can you do that and study at the same time? One thing you can do is you can incorporate them into studying. And we talked about this in the nursing interview that we just did, but my wife and I, while she was in nursing school, I would take her questions, I would quiz her, and sometimes we would make it fun, and I would be like, if you get all these questions right, I'm going to quiz you on 100 questions. If you get them all right, I'm going to take you out anywhere you want to go to dinner. And if you get them wrong, you've got to cook me dinner. And so we would just make it fun and just play little games like that. But you can gather your kids around, or you can meet with a friend and have a fun little study session, make it a game, or maybe get with a study group in nursing school. That way you're getting your social interaction, you're spending time with your children or your spouse or whatever, but at the same time you're getting valuable study time in. Okay, the next tip is you've got to use study tips to reduce study time. And we have a whole playlist on study tips for nursing school, and I'll put a link to that in the description of the video below. But if you use some of these tips that we've been giving you, it's going to cut down on the amount of time. For example, I just did a video on how you can read more efficiently in college or nursing school. If you apply those tips, you're going to be able to swing through those reading assignments a lot more quickly than if you don't use those tips. Another thing is my wife did a video on some of the different learning styles. If you learn which techniques are most beneficial for you, for example, are you an auditory learner, read-write learner, kinetic learner, and then you start to apply those techniques while you're studying, you may find that you can retain the information and learn it more quickly as opposed to just using a lot of random study techniques. Finally, you want to schedule your classes to reduce time and take advantage of a study guide. Study guides will condense down information. It'll pull out the key concepts and you can study that and save time from rather just studying a lot of random information. And then finally, do you know what one thing all humans have in common, whether they're in nursing school or another major or whatever? We all only have 24 hours in any given day to get things done. Now, a person who knows how to apply these time management techniques will be able to get a lot more accomplished than a person who is not using these techniques. And even though you use time management, you can still overstretch yourself. You can sign yourself up for too many hours at work. Maybe you can take too many classes. And so one thing, if you find yourself struggling, you might have to tell some friends or family members, look, this is going to be a really rough semester. I'm just not going to be able to hang out as much as I used to, but maybe this summer or next semester things will be different. Another thing is you may have to cut back on some hours at work if you find yourself in a bind during a semester. And then finally, worst case scenario, you may even have to drop a class and just make it up over a winter or summer break. And that's not a big deal. A lot of students do that. So those are some basic tips on time management. I know a lot of students struggle with this, but if you can learn to apply these tips efficiently, you're going to find yourself having a lot more spare time to complete those assignments and study. So thank you so much for watching. Please consider subscribing and have a great day.